So good morning. Today is the 20th of August, and my name is Farrokh Mistree, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the World Zoroastrian Chamber of Commerce's webinar series that is a conversation with young Zoroastrians on applying to graduate school in the US and the UK. The focus of the World Zoroastrian Chamber of Commerce is entrepreneurship is the pursuit of opportunity beyond controlled resources. Today we have three speakers, Janet K. Allen, Karishma Koka, and yours truly. I will be moderating this session, and if there are any comments, any issues that you'd like to discuss further, you can connect with me on the email that is listed out here. The topics the three of us will cover today are why pursue a graduate degree? Why pursue a graduate degree? The second is how do I put together a competitive application? And this competitive application is what we focus on are the principles that will apply not just to the United States or Canada, North America, but also to the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. The principles will remain the same. The way in which you're asked to apply and the specifics will be slightly different. There are three parts to how do I put together a competitive application. One deals with how do I fund my graduate studies. The second is whether to do a master's or a PhD, and then where to study, what to study, where to apply, and what is involved in putting together a competitive application. When do you start? And tips for writing a statement of purpose. That statement of purpose is critical, absolutely critical. If you don't get the right statement of purpose, nobody's going to admit you. And then the last portion is who can I contact in the ZFN to respond to my queries in North America and the UK. We have a list of recordings of the ZFN webinars at this website. So Janet will introduce Janet and Farrokh. So go ahead, Janet.
So Farrokh and I are married. I am a professor of industrial and systems engineering at the University of Oklahoma. And of course, Farrokh is a professor of mechanical engineering. So we enjoy talking to people about having fun in academia and also giving you an opportunity to learn how to achieve your dreams. And that's particularly in this case, we're talking about graduate school. So that's what we're interested in. Our contact information is given. You can see it. So if you have any further questions after this is done, please get in touch with us. So that's it. Karishma?
Thank you all for being here today. I'm a neuroscientist with a focus in learning and development, particularly the effects of stress on the brain. And stress is not always bad. So both good and bad stress on the brain. And after a PhD at the University of Cambridge, I spent 10 years with the Medical Research Council. My master's was from India, the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, an excellent place. And then I went on to co-found the Ultimate Achievements Academy with my mother, Jaru, where we focus on building both competencies and skills in students and elders so that we can all learn to convert challenges to opportunities so that we can do the best we can for the world and encourage and empower others to do likewise. Over to you, Farrokh.
Now, this is the first of a series of webinars that we are planning to help all of you undergraduates, graduate students, in terms of planning for the future. So today's talk, so the next talk is planning where to study. This talk after that is on creating, how do you go about creating economic, social, and intellectual value? So it's not just that we will be pushing going into engineering or a profession, but in terms of the social sciences and the humanities, how do you make it happen? In essence, we'll make the distinction between Naukri, which means just going for a job, and a career, which is more what the Gen Z generation is all about. The third talk is on scholarships and funding for higher education. The fourth is on how do you get the most from a college experience? How do you plan? How do you network? How do you sell yourself? The fifth is on being happy as a Zoroastrian graduate student away from home. This is a very important talk. It doesn't just deal with doing your homework and making things happen, but it deals with your mental state. How do you keep yourself happy? How do you keep yourself engaged? How do you keep yourself connected to the Zoroastrian community? The next talk is on being successful in different fields. Education is one of them, finance is another one, and medicine is a third one. So we're going beyond just engineering and the natural sciences. The next one is on giving back. And this is very important to us because it's not all about you. It is about you being successful so that you're in a position to give back. And this is a very important aspect of why these webinars are being done under the World Zoroastrian Chamber of Commerce. Percy Master, the current president of the World Zoroastrian Chamber of Commerce, has indicated that the principal goal that he has for the next 3 years is to ensure the spirit of giving back and to make people give back, particularly with the younger generation. So this is a very important webinar that we put together. And then the last one deals with challenges and coping strategies for studying in India. You're all from India or from Dubai or wherever you've studied. What are the challenges that you faced and how have you overcome them? Because everybody faces challenges. So this is a comprehensive set of talks that we put together from now until the end of March. There's a very important aspect out here. And we'd like to introduce something called a Farrockism and a Janatism. We start by saying you cannot argue against or for a belief. So if I say I believe in God, you can't argue with me. If I say I don't believe in God, you can't argue with me. You just cannot do it. What we do is we share with you our strongly held beliefs that others may disagree with. So what you hear from us is not gospel. What you hear from us is our years of experience. Janet and I have been in academia since 1976. Karishma has been teaching for the last 10, 15 years, and she is a professional in her own life, encouraging others to be able to get into universities and graduate school. So it is important for you to talk to others and decide what is right for you. You need to talk to others and decide what is right for you. Now, I make that statement very importantly for the following reason. Parents have a desire to tell students their children what needs to be done. And it's well-meaning. The only way in which a child can respond to that is by knowing himself or herself, and then saying by taking the input of our parents and taking the inputs of all around us, this is what I think should be done for me. This is the important part. So there are two parts to this. One is to be able to identify what you want out of life and who you are. That means define your identity. Two, interact with your parents and listen to what other people are saying, and then jointly work it out with your parents, because your parents care more about you than anybody else in the world, to figure out what is the right direction for you to go. Now, why graduate school? Now, this is just information that has been pulled out from the oh, sorry, Janet, go ahead.
Okay, so this is something about from the U.S. Bureau of Census, and of course it's data for the United States. So you can look and see about what happens when you get different degrees. On the left-hand side, you can see if you've got a doctoral degree, you had this much median weekly earnings in 2020. But if you didn't get a doctoral degree, but maybe just had a bachelor's degree, this was the weekly earning. And of course, a high school diploma is here and less than a high school diploma is there. So you can see that there is a change, a considerable change as you get more education. That doesn't mean that everybody that has, say, a doctoral degree earns this much money, but on the average, you can expect that. And in addition, you can expect a lower unemployment rate. So fewer people with doctoral degrees are unemployed, and more with less than a high school diploma are unemployed.
Yeah, Janet, sorry, I don't see the shared data.
The Farrokh,
Okay.
Farrokh,
Now do you see it?
Yep.
okay, again, doctoral degree is here, the median weekly earnings is there, and the unemployment here, less than a high school diploma, is down at the lower part. And as you get less and less education, you can see the trend. Okay. So Farrokh, I think I've described this already. Next slide, please.
All right. So I want to distinguish between a Naukri and a career. We are currently preparing students for jobs that don't exist using technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet. This is attributed to the former Secretary of Education, Richard Riley. And what is very important here is to recognize there are three parts to it. The education that you're getting right now is focused, not taking into account what could happen in the future. So just because, so you could come along and say, all right, I know that it's good to be a mechanical engineer, it's good to be a doctor, it's good to be a lawyer. That's limiting yourself, because the world is changing so rapidly and there are lots and lots of new things that can happen. So you need to keep this in mind, that you're being prepared. You're the next Gen Z, you're the next generation, that you're not going to use the same technology that you're using. You're going to not solve the problems that we are seeing right now. You're going to do new problems, new things. And then the other one is attributed to Charles Darwin. And it is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive to change. In other words, we recognize that you could be strong and you are certainly intelligent, because the fact is that you want to get a higher degree. For example, Kaius wants to do astrophysics, and he also wants to be a professional swimmer. That's a great aspiration. The question is that he has to face is, can he be adaptable? Because to be able to achieve these things, you have to adapt. How do you adapt? How do you make these things happen? So you have to think in terms of getting an education that prepares you to adapt on a regular basis to the new challenges that you face. So here is a story about Alice in Wonderland, and I'm sure that all of you have faced Alice in Wonderland or know about Alice in Wonderland. And I'm going to twist it a bit and say, are you going to be a tool user? Or so you will see out here that here is the Cheshire Cat, and here is Alice. So imagine that you are Alice. Each of you is Alice. So Kais, imagine that you're standing out here, and instead of Alice, that's you. And the story goes that imagine that this is the world of reality. This is the world today, and behind this blue thing is a wall. And Alice has been given the choice of being shrunk down to a tiny little thing, go through the wall to the other side. This side is the world of reality. We know what the world of reality is. We know economics. We know the social conditions. We know what's the government conditions. We know all these things. And on the other side is the world of make-believe. Alice can do anything with her life that she wants. Anything that she wants. It's a blank sheet of paper. And the Cheshire Cat asks Alice, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? And Alice says, I don't know, as long as I get there. And the Cheshire Cat answers and says, in that case, do what you want. Eventually you will get there. What's the point? The point is you must have a goal. Do you want to stay in the world of reality? Or are you willing to come to the world of make-believe? Well, you don't know what the questions are. You don't know what's going to happen. Are you willing to take the risk of going into the world of make-believe? Are you going to be an entrepreneur? Because as an entrepreneur, you have to take risks. How do you pay yourself to take a risk? As an entrepreneur, you have to adapt. You have to adapt. If you don't adapt, you're dead in the water, and that's the end of you. So it's the importance of a goal. Now, I make a statement that in the world of reality, imagine that I came to Kais and said, here's a problem in astrophysics, solve the problem. So Kais solves the problem. And I say, very good, Kais. Now I want you to solve this new problem quicker, faster, better, etc. So Kais goes along and uses the existing tools that he has, the existing knowledge that he has, and he solves the problem quicker, faster, better, etc., etc. So Kais becomes an excellent tool user. He becomes an excellent tool user. He increases productivity. The company is very happy with him and says, oh, you've increased our productivity, blah, 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 etc., etc. So there's a limit to it. When you increase productivity, the increase in productivity has to be coupled to a decrease in jobs. Has to be. Why? Because if you're able to increase productivity, it means you can automate the system and use computers, or you offshore it. So Kais, who's a super duper user of some computer to solve this problem, is laid off. So he's an outstanding tool user. In the world of make-believe, Kais is on the other side, and he's a teeny-weeny little thing. There's a box of tools at his feet. That box of tools is teeny-weeny. That's what he knows today. And the Cheshire Cat comes along and tells Kais, aha, here is a problem that I would like you to look at. That problem has never been looked at before. We don't know what the goal is in that problem. So Kais looks in his toolbox and says, hey, I don't have the tools. So what does Kais have to do to be able to proceed in the world of make-believe? He has to make tools, to be a tool maker. So as an entrepreneur, which is what is emphasized in the World Zoroastrian Chamber of Commerce, the principle here is that you need to learn how to be a tool maker, do new things, find an opportunity, define that opportunity. Having defined that opportunity, organize information, persuade people so that they all get together to be able to deliver value. Now both a tool user and a tool maker are needed in industry, government, and academia. Both are needed. Now, this is a Farrockism. I believe to be a good tool maker, you have to be a good tool user. You cannot be a good tool maker unless you're a good tool user. That is a Farrockism. Not everybody agrees with that, but that is the point I'm making. So you have to come along and say, aha, what type of graduate program is right for me? Let me give you an example. If your interest is in getting a master's degree and then not returning to India, it is better for you to go to Canada than it is for you to come to the United States. This, again, is another Farrockism. If, on the other hand, you're interested in getting a PhD, it's better for you to come to the United States than to Canada. Right. So applying to graduate school in the US. Typically, graduate school is free for STEM students. This includes international students who qualify for based on the GPA, the GRE score. The GRE scores are optional, but it's important for you to take them because it sets you apart from other people, and your statement of purpose. The statement of purpose is critical. It's the way in which, so if you're going for a graduate degree in the United States in the STEM discipline, any STEM discipline, then for the top students, it is free. If you're not, if you're not if you've decided that you want to get a master's and not a PhD, it is much easier to do it in Canada or the United Kingdom. So in this talk, we plan to cover the minimum GPA and GRE scores, what to study, where to apply, how many places to apply, financial assistance, statement of purpose, finding a research advisor, etc. And then what is the timeline to and steps to follow to secure admission and financial support at a graduate institution. So does it matter what I study in graduate school? The answer is yes, and the answer is no. You don't pick a graduate school because of its name. You pick a graduate school to the extent in which your desires and what you want to do can be satisfied by the program that you get to. Both Janet and I went to Berkeley and got our PhDs out there. And our PhD, and we got a lousy education at Berkeley. But we have been successful. We've been very successful. This is not because of Berkeley. This is because of who we are and what we are and how we wish to make things happen. That doesn't mean that everybody from Berkeley got a lousy education. But you have to be careful not to just go for the name brand stuff. You have to find that place that is just right for you. How do I pay for my graduate education? Well, in the United States, if you apply for a PhD and make clear to the admissions board that you want a PhD, the chances of you getting a research assistantship or a teaching assistantship are increased by about 80%. 80%. How many applications? If you have done your homework and you've identified about 20 schools that you could apply to, and you down selected very carefully after having figured out which school is right for you and stuff like that, we would say between 8 to 10. You will apply to about 3 schools that are dream schools, not because of their reputation, but because of how they would challenge you to do new things. 3 schools that are, yes, they meet your expectations, and 2 schools or 3 schools that are backup schools. The GPA is extremely important. So out of 10, if you have a GPA of 9 and above, the tick mark is already there. If it's 8 and above, the tick mark is likely to be there. If it's below 8, it is less likely that the tick mark is there. For the GRE score, for quantitative, you need to get over 70%. For verbal, you need to get over 50%. And for analytical, you need to get over 4 out of 6. These are the target values. These are the minimum target values for a top school. So for example, Janet and I, when we accept students, those are the scores that we look for. The 5th point is very important. You need to do your homework. And it is not coming along and saying, Karishma, where shall I apply? Janet, where shall I apply? Farrokh, where shall I apply? What is important is for you, the individual, to do your homework. You need to communicate with students or professors. So you start by communicating with students or professors. You don't start by communicating with the professor, you communicate with the students or professor. How does the professor guide students? And nowadays on the web, you have students, you can email them. Many of them are from India or Dubai or wherever it is. And you can email them, and if they reply to you, well and good. If they don't reply to you, fine. It's nothing. How does the professor help students get jobs? If a job is an important issue, you need to find out how the professor helps students get jobs. A professor is not beholden to help you get a job. There are some professors who say, okay, if somebody asks me for a reference, I will write the reference for you. There are other professors who say, I will write a general reference for you and would leave it with my secretary. If you want a reference, contact my secretary and the secretary will forward the reference. Okay. Janet and I take it on ourselves to find jobs for each and every one of our students. That is rare. Find out about that. How does the professor relate to students? How often does he or she meet with the students? Have you been to their home? Have you met their wife? Have you met the spouse? Have you met the husband? Have you met the children? What is it? Is it a family or is it just a business for this person? And the most important thing is, what are the professor's current research interests? Now that means you need to go to Google Scholar. You can go to researchgate.net, write it down, researchgate.net. It's free. It's a free portal for you to register. And you find out what the latest publications are, not the old publications. So I still get letters from inquiries from students who say, I want to do manufacturing, or I want to do materials design. We stopped doing materials design about 5-10 years ago. So, recently, we got an email from a person who wanted to do aircraft design with us. The last time we did aircraft design was 20 years ago. We have done it, but you need to find out what our latest interests are, and that comes from the latest papers that we have published. And then you have to, after you've done your homework with the students, tailor make your communication with the professor. It's no good you telling me what you have done and how great you are. You have to tell me how you can add to my research program. How can you add to my research program? So for example, Noshir, he's a very famous professor, and he is at Northwestern University. You need to go to his website. It's a beautiful website. He has his students there, his undergraduate students there. He has Zoroastrian students out there. Go and take a look at his website, contact his Zoroastrian student and say, hey, look, I'm interested in making X, Y, and Z happen. How good is Noshir? How often do you see him? What about his family thing? Hey, how open is he to talk to? Is he a nice fellow, not a nice fellow, stuff like that. Find out about that. Find out about his latest interests. And if you are interested in starting your own company, find out from those students, has Noshir started a company? Does he help people start a company? And the answer is yes. Noshir students have started companies and made things happen. If you are interested in starting a company and you ask my student, is Farrokh or Janet interested in starting companies? They'll say, no, don't come to us because we are not interested in starting companies. So it is very important for you to make that happen. Tailor your statement of purpose to the professor and the institution. Copy the professor student you have communication with. Focus on how you can add value to the professor's research program and what will distinguish you from others. It's no good you telling me that, hey, guess what? I come from a poor family, or hey, guess what? I'm this, that, or the other thing. And I've done this, or I've done that, or I did this internship at this company or that company. Why? Because I'm doing research. The experience that you've had in working with some industrial company in India or Dubai or wherever it is doesn't help. What does help is if you publish papers. You're going to do research with me. I want to know if you are interested in doing writing papers. I'm interested in knowing whether you've had internships with people. So now Janet will tell you what the timeline is.
So like many other things, if you want to be successful at this, it's a good plan to plan. So let's talk about how you do that. Think about at least a year before, if possible, to begin to think about where you want to go. So you want to start working on your application certainly in the summer before. So if you want to start in fall of 2023, work in the summer of 2022. Most people have a summer break, or at least are doing something different in the summer. And so they have some extra time. So in the summer and the fall of 2022, you need to take, this is for the United States, you need to take your TOEFL or your English test, whatever one you choose, your GRE, and identify about a dozen schools that you would like to apply to. That means that you go to the website, you find out that they have whatever course of study you're interested in, and find out what the requirements are for those people. Look at some of the professors, find out if there's someone doing what you want to do. For example, for a while I was admitting students to our graduate program. And when I did that, I received an application saying, I am being funded by the Safety Council, and I need to study safety. Well, our school doesn't have a program in safety. So I turned the person down and they were extremely upset. But if that was what the person wanted to do, I didn't think it was right to accept them. Now, some people will accept you and you'll get there and find out that what you wanted to do is not available. So please check everything. Talk, as Farrokh mentioned, talk to the students that are already there, find out what they do with their professor, whether they like it, what the things that surprise them are, and that sort of thing. After that, you'll want to prepare a statement of purpose. And the statement of purpose does not say something like, since I was a child, I liked to play with Legos, and it was really important to me to play with Legos. We want to know what you plan to do once you get your degree, how you plan to get your degree. We want to know more about the future than about the past, but of course the past is your foundation, so we'd like to know a little bit about that also. But tailor each statement of purpose to a particular professor or a particular school. So you don't just write a generic thing and hope that it will work for everybody. It won't. So apply to 8 to 10, maybe 12 schools, and remember, put them in different categories, the dream schools, the good schools, and some backup schools. Be sure you have your backup schools because you want to go somewhere for your education. Now, applying early is really, really important. When we were accepting people at Georgia Tech, what we would do is in January, we would go and begin to look at all the applications. And when we saw someone that looked interested, we'd talk to them and perhaps make them an offer. Once we had made the offer, that slot was filled and we couldn't take more people. So we admit people based on the amount of money that's available. So the earlier you apply, the more likely you are to have a satisfactory outcome and financial assistance as well. So no matter what the date on the website says, do get your work in, your submission in before December 31st of the year that you want to go, of the coming year. So many invitations go out in February or March with a deadline to accept or not accept by April 15th. So that's important. Don't plan to accept everybody and then choose at the end. That's a very bad problem for the professor, and it doesn't give you a good reputation. So if you accept, plan to go there, please. That's really important. Next slide, Farrokh. So if you want financial aid, and many people do, particularly if you want a researcher assistantship, you'll need to have some specific knowledge to apply to whatever topic is available. And you'll want the skills and your interest to match that, and your knowledge, of course. Now, a teaching assistantship, you'll have to have a specific knowledge of the material that you're going to be teaching, as well as an understanding of English. In the University of Oklahoma, where we are now, you have to pass a spoken English test in order to teach. So that's a requirement. And typically you can't have a teaching assistantship the day that you arrive. It's at least a semester after you arrive. Then there are also scholarships, and that's typically based on merit or sometimes other qualifications, but they're usually not very large. So you have to be prepared for that. That's the kind of financial aid that's available for you. If you're an international student, you can also get money other ways. And of course, having somebody give you money is easier than if you have to earn it. But for an international student, you can take a loan. Sometimes this is hard for an international student to get. And also there's work that you can do. Now, work is restricted to campus work for international students. You can't just go out and get any job. So you need to work in, say, the library, stamping out books, or in the cafeteria, or in a parking lot. This is going to be a maximum of 20 hours per week, and you'll be paid a minimum wage. So this is not going to be very lucrative for you. And of course, if you spend 20 hours of a week doing this sort of thing, you're not studying for 20 hours. So that takes away from the grades that you get. This work on campus is not going to be enough to cover a living and tuition. It's going to be very difficult for you to do that. So ideally, get yourself a financial aid, a research assistantship, teaching assistantship, but otherwise you can work or take a loan. Karishma, over to you.
Thank you very much, Janet and Farrokh. The United Kingdom is the focus of what I'm going to say, but I would like you to think about this. We're here to build a dialogue. So please think of your questions. Start putting them into the chat box. This program is very much about you and your parents, and how you can gain a great sense of joy and happiness in preparing for this most magnificent journey where you become the most authentic you, and you build this team with your parents as you learn to learn, and as you learn to convert challenges into opportunities to find solutions for problems that may not even exist now. And as the World Zoroastrian Chamber of Commerce says, each one of us is really seeking to maximize the nexus between intellectual, economic, and social entrepreneurship as we go beyond resources controlled. And this is exemplified in each of our journeys, both at graduate school, but also before graduate school, and what we do after graduate school. So there are two types of ways of applying for a PhD in the United Kingdom. One can apply for an existing position, which comes with funding, or one can apply to a supervisor and then seek funding separately, designing the course around the work of the supervisor, building on the past to make your future and the future of the department and the other students who might come into that department in the future. There are three types of PhD programs. There's the integrated PhD. One joins for a master's, moving on an MPhil, and then moves on to a PhD. If the project doesn't go well or a student would like to leave, one can leave with a degree after a year or 18 months, but that will be a master's or an MPhil. Then there's the professional doctorate. It is for students planning on working in a profession, be it an engineering profession or a biotechnology position, or medicine, for example, and then moving on to teaching. And then there's the PhD by publication. One can do this sometimes partly or entirely by a more distant approach. One publishes and presents it in the same style as a normal PhD thesis, or one can be in a lab completely full-time and publish there. Therefore, it's very much about knowing three things: what you want to do, what you know about it, what you do not know about it, what you want to know, and then how to go about getting that information and the skills and competencies to make that happen. So one can be skilled at a particular job or a task, but one needs to have the competencies of resilience, adaptability, being able to see the opportunity, to recognize the fire in your own belly, and then be able to be positive enough to harmoniously build opportunities for others, whether it be the lab you're in, the university you're in, or the future world. Let's take the specific example of a few universities now. The University of Cambridge, where I studied. Here, the course is important. So the admission process starts on the 1st of September, and you identify the course you want to do or the department you want to be in. There are separate deadlines for each thing: the funding, the admissions, when to write to people. So there's an applicant portal that one must study in great depth in order to know what there is and what is expected of one. Most universities have some form of an applicant portal That's not to be seen as the application portal for application itself, but to be studied diligently, to be tabulated. So create a table, be very systematic and organized is my suggestion, so that not just you can find what you've seen before, you have the website logged into that table. Your parents can look into that table and see what you have been doing and maybe add to it with a little initial next to it saying, Dad did this on so and so day, or Mom found this out for you. And then when you read what they have put in, you put a little note next to it, your takeaway. So this is a very good process of building a dialogue with parents, which will continue after university right through life. One then needs to have a research proposal, which I'll talk about in a little while, and academic references. So yes, this process of applying to graduate school starts years in advance as you build relationships with your teachers, with your professors at undergraduate. Everything does matter. Then you apply for funding as well. But Cambridge has a collegiate system, unlike most places in the world. Oxford also has a collegiate system. One needs to get into the university and then get accepted by a college, although you can leave that open, but you still need to be accepted by some college, even if you don't choose it. And then, of course, the joyful process of the interview, where people get to know you for the value you have and the value you will be able to contribute in the future. So it is a dialogue which we can best practice by having conversations with our parents and our teachers right through, open conversations, dialogues, where there is a transference of information. So on the next slide, what we will see is a few more examples of how the research proposal can be written so that it demonstrates what you have to offer and how you will make the most of the opportunity given to one. Now, this is where the principles of being very systematic and organized and harmonious, the principle of Ushta, comes in, together with Asha, what is right. So it's a specific question and how it proposes to build on earlier research. So already one is demonstrating what one has read. There's no point saying, I read this book or I read this paper. Demonstrate, what did you take away from it? Why is it important? What are the drawbacks? So again, when you read, tabulate things is my suggestion. Don't just make notes in corners. You need to be able to go back to things you read, link it to other things, and create a whole web of interconnectedness from which you will be able to see for yourself what you are interested in. And it becomes evident to somebody who's listening to you that you have information and you have specific valuable questions. With this, you define your topic as you demonstrate knowledge of not just your area of interest, but the whole field that is related. What is the need for future research? If everything is perfect and the person you're going to work with and the work is so great, what about you? What are you going to do? What have you identified for further research? This is key. So while it may not be specific and it may change, you know that things will change and you realize that the questions you ask today may change tomorrow. That is also a form of adaptability, but adaptability based on how information keeps building. That is the process of science or engineering or entrepreneurship that we see, we recognize, and we're able to build upon what we see changes. So with this comes a basic format of having key literature, identifying limitations, identifying questions. Then what about your work? What do you want to do? What are its hypotheses? And how do you see it fitting into the existing research and contributing to problems that may come up tomorrow, offering solutions? So you need to be seen as a student or as a part of an institution or as an entrepreneur, as a person who identifies how solutions can be built. Now, with all this comes specific skills. What methodology? How will you gain these skills? How will you use them? Then you give an outline of this question very briefly and how this particular method applies to this question in order to build in the field. This is the same principle, whether it's law, business, your own job, or your career, or helping other people by mentoring them. So a more specific case will be you identify the theory, the conceptual case. What will you adopt? What are the case studies? Again, with every case study, be very specific. Tabulate these. Identify differences and similarities between case studies and why you choose a certain criteria. List your criteria. How will you measure something? Then, of course, comes, like Farrokh says, what previous research have you undertaken in this field? But how will it help in the future? How will it help the laboratory? How will it help the business? What about the people you're working with? And how will it benefit you? So how are you a valuable person to be invested in? You are always somebody that other people are investing their time, their knowledge, their years of dedication into. Why are you investable? So don't just make a list, demonstrate it and demonstrate your passion with it. So in the next slide, Farrokh will share with us, we will see how the different requirements can change. So some of these are common to different courses in the same university, and some are specific. So my suggestion is don't just look at a university, look at the university, the facilities, and the specific course. So let's look at London School of Economics. Let's say looking at an economics degree, a law degree, or something in intellectual property rights. It is important to be specific, but also see how this relates to other things. Without intellectual property being solid, businesses, science cannot actually apply to the real world. So think about the masters requiring statistics. It's not just about the particular course you want to do, international relations or economics. They require solid analytical techniques. The research proposal, academic references, CV, and one example of written work. Yet at the London Business School, you need 2 essays, not 1. So write your takeaways from things you attend, type it up and keep a record of this right through school. It can start in year 7, you can start in year 10, you can start whenever, start now. Now is the time. So the deadline for the London Business School is the 8th of January. It needs the essays, 2 references, an original graduate management admission test, the GMAT, and the graduate record examination, the GRE score, the transcript, or a certified copy. So if you don't have your transcript ready from your university, a certified copy is accepted. And then the proof of the TOEFL, the ability to communicate. This is extremely important. While it is important to be good and be of value, it is also of value to show how you can add value to others, therefore communication. So that's another thing people are looking for. But identifying the specialty of that university is also something they're looking for. They want to see that you know about the place you're applying. So applying with the same application to everywhere is not a good idea, because the people who are reading your application want to know that you choose them specifically. And for that, identifying, for example, that there is a split PhD scheme at the Imperial College. You can do your university research at the university or abroad, a fantastic opportunity. Or one can partner with research institutions, the PRI scheme, register for a PhD there, carry out research in somewhere else, in another institution or an industry. And this is where the spirit of entrepreneurship and giving back comes in, because you are now willing to identify, go beyond the opportunities controlled, and then give back to multiple places in different ways, depending on what is needed. Demonstrate how you can do this. Don't just think, I'm very good at this, and that's all people are looking for. They're looking for that and who you are. Now, King's College has a very sensible 4-step approach. You find your supervisor, you find funding, you make the online application, and complete your project submission for approval. All of them are equally important. Regent's University for Business Administration and Entrepreneurship has also the Family Business Research Center. So they're interested in your family research and business. It also has a Center for Transnational Business, the Management Faculty Center. Each of these is a very different university method, targeted to different courses. Yet you have something like the University of Sheffield, where you can basically do a master's or a PhD in almost anything if you can design your course well. Coming back to what Farrokh said, it doesn't matter where you do your research. It is what you can make of that. Thank you, Farrokh. Over to you, Janet.
So yes, excuse me. Yes, the requirements for a statement of purpose in the United States are a little different from the requirements in the UK. So let me talk about that for a little while. The important thing is what you want to do with your degree once you get it. What are your ideas? What are your plans? So this is an extremely important thing that you need to tell your advisor. The advisor has choices about how you can be educated. And then that you want your advisor to know about what you want to do so that that advisor can help you. Also, you need to then put in a 5-paragraph essay. You want to have the first paragraph about what you want to do. The second paragraph would be your academic preparation for what you wish to study and your accomplishments. So how have you done previously? And is it related to what you want to do as a graduate student? Then your extracurricular activities, but it's not just a list that we want. We want to know how these have shaped who you are. For example, have you held leadership positions or are you by nature a follower? Have you made a difference when you were a leader? Or what kind of things have you added to the organization that you are working with? Fourth paragraph would be about the program that you're applying to. Why are you just right for it and it is just right for you? Why this institution? Which professors are appropriate for you? And you can find this out by exploring on the web. Now you need to be a little bit careful that you should list a couple of different professors, not just one. I had a applicant earlier that applied and said she wanted to do a smart home study, and she identified the only professor in the university that was doing that. Well, it turns out that that professor had no funding. And so the professor couldn't admit her to study because she needed funding. And it was a big problem. If the person had said, I would like to do a few different things, then there would have been a better chance for her being admitted. And of course, at the end, she could have decided that she wanted to go to that university or not. So it is not just getting it, partly it's getting admitted and partly it's choosing after you've got some choices what to select. The last paragraph at the end summarize what you have written and what you plan to do and why this is just right for you and why you are just right for it. So it is not just one direction. You are right for me, but also I am right for you. Please remember that for all your applications. Farrokh, the next slide, please. Okay. Some people want to have you write a 1-paragraph essay or short 1-paragraph essays about different topics. And of course, you should be prepared for that. One of the most important things to do is read what they have asked for and do that. You'd be surprised at the number of people that do not do that. So read what you say as you write, check to see that you are writing about what they want you to write about. And at the end, of course, check again. So ideally, you would start by writing the prompt for the essay on the paper and then understand what is needed for that and what you can add to that conversation. Then do a mind dump, organize yourself, could be organizing it in sentences or bullet points. In other words, you're making an outline of what you want to convey. This is important to think about. It is not just anything you feel like writing on the morning you're writing it. Organize these ideas, morph into sentences and paragraphs, and be sure that what you have written, again, is tied to what they want to tell you and that the connection is very clear. So sometimes you think you're writing about something, but you haven't explained why you think it is appropriate. Do that in English. put it down, be sure that the person knows what you are writing about. Modify this as needed as you check what is the requirement is, and then write. And then review your statement for connectivity. Does it hook together? Is it logical? And revise it. You can ask other people to read it. Be sure you put it through a grammar and spell checker, because this is what people gives the reader an idea of how careful you are, how thoughtful you are. So be sure that you don't get hung up with poor grammar or bad spelling. So do this several times, read it carefully and tweak. Now, in addition to your statement of purpose, you'll want to start everything with a letter. And the letters to professors turn out to be important. When you get a letter, we want to be sure that the professor knows that it is a letter for that professor, him or herself. So I have received letters that say, I want to do just what you do. And my interest is thermodynamics. Well, I don't do thermodynamics. And so that's not something that you should be writing to different people. Go to the web and find out what these people do before you write a letter like this, and don't write the same thing to everybody. I have read your paper and I am interested in your work. Now, Farrokh mentioned that we are not necessarily doing what we were doing 20 years ago. And so we want to be sure that you are looking at something that is recent and that you are convincing that you have actually read this paper. Which paper did you read and what did you take out of it? I have been to your website. That's lovely. That's nice. What did you take away from my website? You are the greatest, therefore I want to work with you. This is not something that will get a professor interested in working with you. The person typically has a fairly good idea of their standing in the intellectual community, and having you tell him or her that won't necessarily help you at all. Another thing we see is you have a great institution, therefore admit me and give me financial support. Again, not something that I will necessarily buy as a professor who would fund you. Another thing that we see is I'm really, really interested in research, but I only want a master's degree. If you were really interested in research, you'd want a PhD. So I mentioned this, the next one, so I'll skip to this. A letter, something that I have seen fairly well occasionally. I get a letter saying, "Dear sir, I have been to your website and my research interests match yours. I see this." Now, obviously, they haven't been to my website or they wouldn't address me as "Dear sir." So this is something you have to think about. There is another last statement. I plan to get a master's, work in industry, and come back and get a PhD. We have seen literally hundreds of people that have said this. And maybe 1 to 2% of them actually come back. And when they come back, they typically have a hard time because they have forgotten their mathematics. They have forgotten all the foundational material that they learned as undergraduates. This is understandable. They've been away from the university. They haven't used this material for a while, but it is very difficult for them to get started again and will take them extra time. So moving to the next slide, we want to have you do some investigations for yourself. So there are a series of websites here for you, and please study them. There's something about going to graduate school and you. So this is the first thing that you can look at the website. Of course, our university, the University of Oklahoma, go to whichever school or department that you're interested in. There's something about graduate schools on the planet. There is information about US News and World Report, who lists the best graduate schools. Now, this is a cautionary tale. What other people think is the best graduate school is not necessarily the best graduate school for you. You have to use your head. You have to look at it. It's not enough to tell people how wonderful it is that you got into MIT, but what are you going to do at MIT? And is it something that you want to do? Will you get funding? All of these different things are important when you think about the best graduate school for you. The information about the GRE test is available online, as the TOEFL test is also. For the GRE, you can practice online tests, and you may wish to do that before you actually go and sit and take the final exam that is going to get you into graduate school or not. So here are some references for you, Karishma.
Thank you, Janet. So we all have heard of the 5 Ps in one form or another. My 5 Ps, as my dad said, were proper preparation promotes a positive performance. And as we seek to add value by demonstrating this, so what people are looking for is how you seek to add value by making the most of the opportunities given to you at graduate school, and by making opportunities from the problems that you see so that you find solutions. So in other words, the spirit of entrepreneurship, to go beyond resources controlled. It is important to demonstrate a few things. Your purpose, what drives your life? What do you want to do? But with that, the ability to plan, to evaluate, and to create solutions. So it needs to be specific in your area, but also multi-subject. Today's world is all about integrative work as well as specifics. So to be deep and linear, but to also cross boundaries and be able to seek, as Noshir Contractor had once said, to make something of the network and contribute to the network, you need to be able to see what other people are doing and to harness that. But also to have very, very good analytical skills. One needs to have good grades. So one cannot stress enough the ability to demonstrate how you have, as a student, maximized the opportunities and found certain difficulties and what you did with the difficulty to make it better. So instead of saying in one's personal statement, I'm very good at analytical skills, demonstrate, was this in chemistry? Was this in biology? Did you read a paper? Was this related to your work or your project? What was the challenge you saw in that? And how did you, either successfully or not successfully, seek to overcome it? And if it wasn't successful, what you did about it. So people are interested in the story, because that is what goes on at university again. It's also what happens later in a job, when you set up a company, when you mentor others. So that level of being pragmatic and purposeful with a plan is important. So while one is both integrated and specialized, it is important, as we do at the Ultimate Achievements Academy, to focus on the concept of metacognition, learning how to learn, because that applies across board. Soft skills, technical skills, how you mentor others, how you learn yourself. An ability to be self-regulated, both through the good times and the tough times, because both will happen at graduate school. Give examples of this as you prepare your personal statement. But most of all, demonstrate the joy that learning gives you. That ability to spread harmony and happiness is key to a laboratory, as you are always a part of a team. Even if at some point you are alone, you're still part of a future team. You've got to generate that positivity to take with you. Teaching experience is also very important. So contributing to those with less resources is not just, as Percy Master highlights, giving back in the future when you have money or time, but giving back at every moment, as Farrokh and Janet do all the time. Voluntary work in your own sector and another sector needs to be demonstrated, but not just I did this, but this is what happened, this is what I may have done, but this is how it had value. And this is what I learned from that experience, because you are gaining from what you give. Work experience is key together with extracurricular activities, but not just I play the piano or I am interested in going to the observatory because I'm an astrophysicist in the making, or I went to a hospital and volunteered because I want to be a doctor. But what did you do for other people? When you were there, how did you contribute? How did you give opportunities to people? It's not just human rights in the future or in another country, the people around you need opportunities. How did you contribute to that while growing yourself and being the best, most authentic you can be? With that comes work experience. Work experience is different from the voluntary sector, particularly in a personal statement in the United Kingdom. One needs to demonstrate both voluntary work and work experience in your sector and an allied sector, implementing the skills and knowledge that you have gained while you seek to gain more knowledge. Now, with all this, you have time left over. So what did you do with that time? Did you read? Did you take up a paper that was a little beyond your level and look to interpret it? Did you see how risk assessment can be carried out? Because as Adel says, every opportunity being converted into something for the future requires evaluating risk. Therefore, change management. If one course doesn't work or a path doesn't work, how will you tweak it to get somewhere where you can be successful? Demonstrating that is also important. So to conclude, it is important to be dedicated. It is important to know your stuff the best you can. It is important to be emotionally resilient and to handle whatever comes your way, to make it something good for yourself and others, and overall to contribute to harmony as best as you can, both for your parents and for the people that you want to work with, so that as the Zoroastrian Faculty Network promotes with the World Zarathustra Chamber of Commerce, it is the maximizing of the nexus between economic, social, and intellectual domains. That is key. And in that sweet spot is sweetness, not just for you and others. And that happiness that you spread allows growth and progress, both for people and the planet. So being the best you can be now and in the future is key. Thank you, Farrokh. So resources, as Janet mentioned, can be found on the internet. I've put some here. But while you look at individual universities, it's important to keep your eye out for something unique. For example, the Portsmouth Global PhD covers not just tuition fees, and at the international level, some scholarships give tuition fees at the local level. And then one needs to go and find another scholarship that will give you the overseas research studentship. That's what I had to do at Cambridge. But the Portsmouth University covers that as well at an international level. In addition, it gives you a stipend and a one return flight to London during the duration of your course. That's lovely, but it takes finding. In addition to that, there are the standard scholarships like the Cambridge Nehru, which I got, the Schevening, which topped up my scholarship. Then you have the Rhodes Scholarship and the Overseas Research Studentship, among many, many others. So my suggestion again is to specifically categorize what you read. Put in the details, work with your parents in a dialogue, work with your school teachers, work with your university professors, and write to people around the world. You will find mentors, whether for 5 minutes, 5 months, or 5 years, in people around the world. You may never meet them. You may never see them, but they will help you. So reach out with specific questions demonstrating what you have found on the website and what you want to know. So coming back to what I said earlier, know what you know what you need to know what you don't know, and know how to get the right information and build the right skills. So all this actually fits in to the Zarathustra Daina and the messages of Asho Zarathustra. So you are actually living the faith and the principles by going through this process of gaining knowledge in the best way you can. Because in the Gathas, in Yasna 30.2, it says, listen, reflect, and then decide to take action now. Now is the best time, so that we progress in a harmonious way. So what do we listen to? As Farrokh said, it's both the voice from within. Now, this is very, very important wherever the university, whatever the job, whatever the business, whatever the bank loan you're applying for, is to be authentic. For that, we need to learn to listen to the voice within, and to our elders, and to the network. Yet we need to be able to decide something after evaluating for ourselves with the best data, the best information needs to be reflected upon. There is a lot of misinformation out there, and there's no point after a year in the wrong course saying, oh dear, I wish I had done something else. It's important to finish what we start as much as possible. Therefore, reflect and then decide whatever is good for you and for the people around you. Your parents are part of this process, is what I always tell students. Yet it's your decision. This is really key, because when we take the best decision with theory and implementation and evaluation, we are then able to build the strongest, happiest, most authentic self. So that, like trees share information, not just the oxygen and the carbon dioxide, with the oxygen they produce with humans and take back the carbon dioxide, they're also sharing nutrition and information with each other in ways that we cannot see below the ground. That happens in real life too, in all entrepreneurship and academic ventures. We're sharing information. And for that, we need the right information. And we need to know how to evaluate that so that we can become true caretakers, the Vastarem, as we pray in the Aunavar, or as we say, the entrepreneurs, to maximize the nexus between intellectual, economic, and social domains. Over to you, Farrokh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, oops. All right. Thank you all very much thank you, Janet and Karishma, for your presentations. And now we have organized people that we have mentored in the past for them to share with all of you what their experiences have been. So I'm going to start by talking to Zain, inviting Zain Pitawala in a minute or two to share how he has gone about preparing himself for graduate studies. So share some of the points, reinforce what we've said, disagree with what we've said, how you've gone about doing it, what's valuable for other people. So go ahead, Zain.
Sure. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So I've been fortunate enough to have been mentored by Professor Mistree, Professor Janet Kellen, and Dr. Karishma from the very beginning of ZFN. And I started out quite early in November 2021 about the PhD application for fall 2023 admissions. So I was attending Q&A sessions and open houses of various universities. I was learning what the process would look like after a year. So that's the key point here. First of all, start early. I cannot emphasize on how important this is. And then in 2022 of summer, I was selected for ZYAB program, Zoroastrian Youth Across Borders. But unfortunately, due to certain circumstances related to visa, I was not able to attend. Although this gave me time to prepare my SOP and applications for scholarships like the Quad Fellowship and Rhodes Scholarship. And what I would emphasize here would be to stay organized. And if we are organized, like just maintain an Excel sheet, like where you would list programs, the start dates of those programs, the deadline, whether you have written the SOP, or whether you have actually contacted professors regarding LORs. So staying organized is also really, really important thing related to admissions. And then, of course, I totally agree with Professor Farrokh Mistree and Janet Kellen regarding you have to become a tool maker. Of course, you would know how to use a tool, but it would be really, really impactful if you learn how to make those tools. And if you really want to generate knowledge for the society, then I think so PhD is what you should be aiming for. And so being clear about the purpose of what you want to do would actually give you the directions where you would have to go. And of course, be efficient and be ethical. And at the end, don't forget to help others, because someone has helped you. So it's up to you to pass on the baton and help the coming generations prepare for the same. So Yeah, and I guess that's it.
Thank you. Aditi Singh. She's preparing to apply for graduate school and preparing her applications. Aditi, in a minute, what are the key things that you've taken away and what advice do you have for the others?
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to share. So I'm really glad. For me, it's like, for me, the best advice I would like to give is please choose your surrounding. Please choose the right people for yourself. I've come across the right people at a very right time, and that's why I guess I'm on the right path or going towards the right path. So whatever you're planning for yourself in life, whether it's for anything, academia, industry, whatever you want to do in career or in any aspect of your life, choose the right people. So that's my first give.
Thank you.
Second, for yeah.
Go ahead.
Second for the yeah. Second for the graduate school preparation is better, as the answer, organization, like having a organized schedule for you. Of course, as a student, there's always a change in the schedule, but as much as you try to, make it up for yourself and beyond that, and try to adapt as soon and kick back in that schedule back so that you can be on timeline, you can back beyond that, the timeline which you decided, it would be great for you. And third, you have to look up for yourself. Like you might be having the best people around, but what's best for you is what you know. You have to get your mind. You have to get your mind on the thing which you want. You have to listen to yourself. You have to listen what you want to do. And if surroundings even don't, if the people really don't support you, have to question, am I putting it in the wrong way, or is it just really not for me? So like, get this, like, get
Thank you.
to know yourself.
Thank you. Vispi went through this process, applied for graduate school, is now at Northwestern. And Vispi, anything you can add to what has been said by Zain and Aditi would be appreciated.
From my own experience, I would add some things. Firstly, you should start early and have a target. Like, I knew that I'll be doing a PhD in second year of my undergrad. So I started working on publishing papers and also doing internships with Professor Farrokh and Professor Janet, who helped me a lot, and also with some research companies like Tata Research over here. And I feel like those published papers and internships have helped me a lot. Uh, the advantage of that is you work with people who have experience in PhD, you communicate with them, you learn the process, how it is. And while applying as well, they can recommend you. So that could be also and they will gauge your skills and tell you, are you good for a PhD or not? And if you are good, which uh, field or which stream you will perform better in. So that could be my advice. And I would like to emphasize the points which have been said over here. Be structured and organized, and don't miss the deadlines. Uh, and also try to apply as early as possible, because if you apply as an early bird, you might get advantage as well. And additionally, uh, try to get fundings, because uh, the fees for masters is high. So I would of course tell everybody to be a tool maker and do a PhD, because it's a phenomenal program in which, like, you learn, you also do research, you get funding, and you become a tool maker. So that's my advice. And once you do something and be successful, don't forget to contribute to your community, because it is your community through which you have come up. So thank you.
Thank you. Nazneen, your experience.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. It was really a great presentation, really very resourceful as well.
In my experience, basically, I planned on doing my master's in 2019 is when I started with my master's, but I started planning it a year or two in advance. I started doing my research well in advance because, and of course, nowadays you have the online platform, you have online resources, you have the websites to all the universities. So I would say students should go ahead and really research well before you could apply and be well prepared for which college you want to apply to as well. We're always there to help. The ZFN team is always here to help us with everything. When I was planning on studying abroad, there was nothing as such, but now we all have the opportunity. So do make use of it. And let us know if you all require any help, any resources, and if you all even come across any universities, and do connect with people on LinkedIn for getting in touch with professors, even with alumni students, so you could get to know more about the program that you want to pursue ahead. And that's it.
Thank you. We have two professors, Noshir Contractor and Porus Balsara. So I invite Porus Balsara to add value to this conversation.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think I went through your presentation, and the presentation is excellent. It hits all the points that are covered. And as everybody said, I like the Janet's, I think towards the end, she had the slides as to what you should not send in an email to a professor. Those emails promptly end up in the delete box. If you want to say something to a professor, say something which is personal, that is not in everybody's dreams kind of stuff. We receive tons of emails every day from prospective graduate students, and everybody says that they have gone through our website, how they have read one of our papers, and they will re-quote the statements from the papers. All those tricks are known to us. So it's not that we fell from the sky in these positions. We were also graduate students or undergraduate students, so we know all the tricks that or all the things that people do in this game. So please try to be genuine, and whatever it is, be truthful and honest. We like that more than your experiences and all your glorious deeds that you have done in the past. What we want to see is how genuine you are, whether you have fire in your belly, whether you are passionate about what you want to do, and what you're going to do in the future. Your past is the past. I want to see what will happen in the future. So with that, I'll stop for now. So,
Noshir.
Sure. Thank you again for organizing this wonderful session. I wish I'm thinking back on when I was applying to graduate school back in when I was in IIT Madras, and I wish I had the opportunity to listen in on such an incredible set of guidance and tips that our students today are able to listen to. So I hope that in addition to those who are tuned in live for the Zoom stream, that because this will be on YouTube, that others who couldn't make it today for one reason or another should also go back and take a look at it. And perhaps even some of you may want to take a look at it. I wish, as I heard some of both the data points about why to go to grad school, for example, that Janet mentioned, but also some of the strategies. I plan to go back and look again at some of these myself so that I could use them in future. Now, to you folks and prospective students and graduate students, I think that there's not very much that I can add, but what I will say is that a couple of things that I know that the panelists believe in strongly, but maybe was not underscored as much in today's presentation, was the importance of engaging with parents and also engaging with people beyond your parents. In my case, one of the things I think is important is to talk to as many people as possible, not necessarily only the professors that you want to work with, certainly the graduate students that you want to work with, but a lot of this is generalized knowledge. So whenever you have an opportunity to talk to folks who are your seniors, who are, who have gone to grad school, who are friends, listen to their experiences, listen to parents, listen to your friends of your parents. And then you can make the sum total of decisions. One of the things that I will share was true for me was when I was an undergrad in electrical and thought about switching over to doing something that was more in the social sciences and media. My dad in particular, bless his soul, he passed away earlier this year. His first reaction, being an engineer himself and being in India at the time, like, no, go get a degree, just stay in engineering. Who wants to go do something else? Because we have these traditions that in India in particular, that if you're not an engineer or a doctor, then you're a nobody. Oh, well, maybe at the time IAS, administrative service, was a third option, but that was about it. But, you talk to as many people as you can, learn from many options. Of course, my dad came around very much into this and was very proud of what I ended up doing. But the bottom line is talk to as many people, do engage with adults, engage with a lot of other senior people seniors to you in terms of having gone to grad school, and listen to all the tips, tricks, and techniques that they will share with you. And you have so many more opportunities to talk to your people in those networks, and there's lots to learn. And then take all the input you get, and then make a decision that is true and authentic, as was mentioned earlier, to yourself.
Thank you, Noshir. Now we will open the floor up for parents and for participants to ask questions or state their opinions, etc. So who'd like to go? We have Arzeen, we have Havovi, we have Pari, we have R, we have Arizu, we have Farhad, we have Vahishta, we have Khurshid, we have Cyrus Giwala. So any of you, any comments that you would like to make? Do start. And after that, we will have a closing deal where we'll have Mayor Amulsad summarize, Dharam Pastakia say his thing, and then Percy Master will say the last bit.
Hello, hi, sir. Firstly, I would thank all the facilitators for today's session. It was amazing. I have my sister over here, Nazneen. She's also had an experience of going abroad and studying, and I also wish to go next year. I'm already in the preparation stage. I'm practicing my IELTS. I'm also in my bird year. So a lot to study and a lot to research yet left. So yes, I'm already working on it. I'm already looking for the universities in UK and US. So I think this was the perfect stage for me as well, where I got a broad picture for both the places. Definitely, thank you so much, ma'am, Janet ma'am. I got to know about the SOPs and the letter we write to the professor. I think I never saw it in that perspective, where I could have gone wrong. So I think I'm definitely going to keep that pointers in mind when I make for myself. And yeah, if I would ever need any help or support, I'll definitely feel free to reach out to you all, because I think the guidance you all have given in this particular session will definitely help me in a long term. And yes, thank you so much.
Arzeen.
I would like to thank Janet ma'am, Farrokh sir, and Karishma ma'am. All the information was really nice. I really liked all the information because I wasn't prepared when I went to UK first time. This time I'm definitely going to prepare myself for even CVs too. All the things you explained for even statement of purpose, that was really nice. I always thought that what kind of statement of purpose should we write after coming back from UK. It was really hard for me to even explain what to do and what not to do. But after hearing all these things, all these points, I think this was really informative presentation and informative guidance you all have given to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Havovi, Pari, R. Havovi, Pari, R. Arezu, Khurshid, Cyrus. All right. So Beram, Sakya. Oh, Havovi, good. Go ahead.
So first of all, I'd like to thank all of you all for giving us such an insightful, having such an insightful conversation, because half of these things I did not know before today. So I'll definitely be doing my own homework.
Havovi, please, Havovi, go ahead.
Yeah, so I said I'll be doing my homework on which universities I want to go to or where I want to apply. And everything Janet ma'am said about the SOPs and the letters to the professor, I think those little mistakes can make so much difference in your applications. So thank you all of y'all.
Kais, go ahead.
Hello everyone. First of all, thank you, Professor Farrokh, Dr. Karishma, and for hosting this session. It gave me a lot of information about what I would need to do on my further graduate, like for my further studies abroad, like in US and UK. This gave me a lot of information, and also Janet ma'am for the one slide which showed that what could go wrong when you're writing your SOP to the university. So thank you so much for all of this information.
Great. Anybody else? Pari, R, Khurshid, Arizu, Aditi, anybody else before I get to the closing portion?
Farrokh,
Beram, go ahead. Beram Pasakia? Beram?
Hi, I'm a grade 9 student. This was a very helpful.
Oh, thank you for organizing this. Yeah, I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Beram has gone. So Khurshid, please continue.
Okay, I'm Karishma.
Okay, if you can hear me, I wanted to underline the
Khurshid, go ahead. Yeah, Khurshid, go ahead. Beram's just stopped. Go ahead, Khurshid.
Okay, so I'm Karishma Koka. I'm in grade 9 and I'm aspiring to get a medical degree in the future. I want to have the PhD degree. So this session was very helpful for me to apply to universities, and everything you have said will be very helpful in the future for me. So I'm an IB student studying in Mumbai. So thank you so much for the session.
Great. Beram, we're having trouble with you, hearing you. You come in and out. Would you like to try one more time?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. To the last speaker who just spoke about being interested in medicine. If you apply for an MD PhD program, it's a free ticket. Just like Farrokh mentioned in the beginning, when you apply for a PhD program, the university will underwrite the costs. And since you're starting early, you're clear while you're still in high school, that's where you want to go, we can help you with that. One of the points made by Janet Allen was the extracurricular activity to volunteer abroad. You can join lots of teams which go out and work in international situations. The end is to underline one of the slides that Farrokh Mistree had shown, that this is and over the course of the year, you will pick up a lot of points which
Param, your internet is very unstable. You're going in and out, so I'll move on, and perhaps we can get back to you. So with that, Mayor Amalsad.
Okay.
All right. First of all, this was an outstanding webinar filled with gems of wisdom. Thank you, Farrokh, Janet, and Karishma, for sharing the gift of your wisdom and enlightenment. Here is a complementing perspective. To me, entrepreneurship is friendship with the leadership in you. Learn to build that friendship with love and light, not shove and fight. There was a lot of focus on the statement of purpose, but to me, there is something called a higher order purpose. That is the purpose of life, which is to live a life of purpose. So choose to live a life of purpose, and you will find that windows of opportunity will gravitate towards you in some unimaginable ways. There was also some focus on Naukri versus career. To me, a Naukri makes something for you, a career makes something of you. Choose to make something of you, and everything for you will follow. There was also some focus on dhyana, the spirit of giving. I believe that life becomes worth living when it is geared towards giving. Choose to reach out in life, and life will reach out to you. Now, Karishma mentioned about building solutions. I feel that that is possible when we see consequences as a source of enlightenment, not as a force of punishment. This helps to become solution-minded. Farrokh talked about a wall. I want to encourage you to see that wall as a wall of inspiration through setting goals. But you must set goals that are out of reach, not out of sight. There was also a lot of focus on scores. I think it is important for you to understand that you are much more than just a mere score. Focus on building that you in you, and you will score well in life. There was also a lot of focus on building knowledge, which I'm a proponent of, but to me, knowledge is precious, wisdom is priceless. Learn to use your knowledge to build wisdom, and that will help you in life. And finally, what you conceive in your mind and believe in your heart, you will receive in your life. I wish you all a life filled with a succession of successful successes. Thank you.
Thank you. Percy. Percy is the president of the World Zoroastrian Chamber of Commerce, and he'll do the closing statement. And then we'll stop recording and see if we can bring Behram back on to talk to us.
Thank you, Farrokh. I think the main takeaway from this program has been the wonderful information which has been passed on to all of us, especially the young students, by Professor Farrokh, Professor Janet, and of course, Dr. Karishma. This information is so valuable to all of you youngsters, because then you can now plan how to do your master's and how to do your PhD, how to apply to a university, and how to do your English essays, because that is also very important when you have to get admission to a good university. So these are all the wonderful learning which we have done today through the experience of all these stalwarts. And a lot of things has been already said. But what is most important, I think, when you do your master's and your PhD is that you build a character of yourself. You know, you make a character by where you become disciplined, you become focused, you plan your future very well, and you try to become a good human being at the end of the day. So these are all the values that you will be taking away from this program, and as well as when you do your master's and your PhD. And you all are very intelligent, very young, very forceful and talented. So please, I wish you all the best. Take advantage of the experience which the professors have given you today. They are so very obliging that you can even talk with them. You can give an email to them and they will explain to you what you have got to do. So all these things, these values you should take away from this program and try and make a better human being of yourself. And as already has been said, that when you are successful, guide your friends and your young people who are younger to you to take on this mantle of having a good degree. And education is so very important in our lives, and especially education for girls is even more important because they make the future, they make the family learn. So there is no power on earth so important than in educating a girl. So that is very important also. So please take away the values from this program. It has been done very articulated and done very well. And I compliment all the professors who took part in this program today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As a closing statement, Janet, Karishma, and I are available to talk to you, but more importantly, not just talk to you, but to talk to you and your parents. And we read statements that you make, we comment on the statements, and when we need help, we contact Noshir and Porus to help us with advising, and also other people. For example, right now, Zain, who has worked with us, is giving a remote internship to 2 high school students in California. And we have Bispi, who did an internship with us, published with us, is now working with us in giving a remote internship to 2 high school students in California. I reach out to Zain, and he comes along and helps other people as well. So as we build this community, we will have you helping others and show you how to help others to make things happen. Nazneen has been involved in helping people. Karishma, of course, has been involved in helping people. So the idea here is to grow the community, and we are looking for you to become part of this community, to spread the word, to reinforce this notion of people getting educated, people giving back to the community, and things along those lines. So Karishma, if you could stop recording now, and then we will stay on and we will just dialogue.